Welcome to the Mojo Podcast with me, Richard Stokes. It's great to have you here. And if you're a regular listener, welcome back. And thank you so much for your support. I just love seeing and hearing your feedback. You know, I feel immensely privileged to be meeting such amazing people who are sharing their revealing and positive stories for all of us to learn from, be inspired by, and apply to our day-to-day lives. It was an amazing chat last time out with Tim and Steph, the founders of Aberlin. A highly personal account that led them to leaving what on paper looked like the best jobs in the world and creating their own Calvados brand, Aberlin, where they put care at the core. It's well worth listening to that one, especially if you're a budding entrepreneur. This week, I have a question for you. Are you sitting comfortably? No, this isn't about Listen with Mother for UK listeners of a certain age. This is about our posture, how we hold ourselves, how we sit, stand and walk. Perhaps the most basic, unconscious actions we undertake daily, but that can have a huge impact on our mojo. I have a superb guest this week to talk us through some shifts in our posture as a route to improving our mojo. Saskia Griffiths is a posture coach, amongst other things. She runs retreats and teaches online to a myriad of clients globally, from Olympic athletes to desk-bound executives. Saskia tells me about the reason she went on a quest to discover bowspring, the technique she learned and now uses to help people move away from living with pain, as she herself spent years with chronic pain from injuries caused by working with horses and being an adventure sport fanatic. We met at her retreat space in the north of Ibiza, Casa del Carmen, aptly named and a great place to record in the great outdoors. Yes, you'll hear the wind in the trees and even the flapping of her dog Sky's ears. Being able to meet in real life also meant Saskia was able to give me the once-over and check my posture. It was pretty sobering, and throughout the interview her words allowed me to bring awareness to how I was sitting. So you'll kind of hear me shuffling around in my seat from time to time. I'm pretty sure you'll be on the move too, and you'll be uncrossing your legs as she suggests. Now, given the amount of time we're all spending in Zoom rooms, Teams, Hangouts, whatever platform you're using right now, I also asked Saskia for some super practical biohacks to help your mojo be at its best in these environments. So listen out for that, and I hope it's really useful for you. I really hope you enjoyed the episode and that you can apply Saskia's wisdom to help you sit more comfortably and leave that mojo draining pain behind. And please do remember to tell your friends about the podcast, especially those who could do with some posture support perhaps, and also please leave a 5-star rating and help the podcast reach more people by writing a short review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. Now over to Casa del Carmen and my chat with Saskia Griffiths. Welcome back to the Mojo Podcast, and it's wonderful to be back on location with the Mojo Podcast. I'm in the north of Ibiza, just outside the town of San Miguel at Casa del Carmen, the home and retreat space of Saskia Griffiths, who's my guest today. And Saskia, how are you and how is your mojo today?
Hi, Richard, and thank you for being here, and thank you for asking me to come onto your podcast. I really love that you have a podcast about mojo. I think that mojo defines a lot for us in our lives, and it's a great way of us understanding where we're at. How would I define mojo? To me, mojo is flow. There's like this time, I think we've all had these moments where things just align effortlessly, and it's like, what happens next? It's like a little tickle from the universe. It's like, it makes you laugh, it gives you joy, it makes things lighter. And so I think of mojo as, this universal support and flow, alignment with what is really, where it's just divine play.
Oh wow, divine play. Tell me more about that, and what's your level of mojo today, where I find you on this sunny day in Ibiza?
So my level of mojo is actually quite high. I've had a few surprises which have really brought me up and taken off some weight that I was carrying. So I would say that my mojo today, I feel really aligned. Things are pretty effortless. even though there's a lot going on. And so I would say my mojo is probably at about 8 out of 10. So it's, yeah.
Great. So 8 out of 10 today, and you talk about this alignment, this sense of divine play. So you're obviously very aware of where your mojo is at any point. What is it that you do if you feel, I know you wake up in the morning or at a certain point of the day and that mojo is down, it's below the 8. What can you do, or what do you do to try and lift it up?
So I've been hosting retreats for over 8 years all over the world, and what I've found is that actually our mojo, our flow, and our alignment with divine play, which is our natural state, is actually a lot more simple than we think it is. So I like to break it down to 1, 2, 3. 1, am I sleeping well? 2, am I eating well? 3, am I moving well? So usually if I've lost my mojo, one of those, I'll usually tend to find that I'm not sleeping well, or I'm probably having a few too many drinks, or eating too much wheat or sugar, or not moving enough, sitting statically. And so, 1, 2, and 3, that's what I go to, back to basics.
Great, and that's such a great sort of diagnostic tool to have in your pocket to understand if it's going to be one of these 3 things that slightly knock me off, and therefore I can make an adjustment to what's going on. And so number 3 around movement, and this is, I guess, what we're going to spend most of our time talking about today. So we bumped into each other at a co-working space we both work from, and Saskia said to me, "Oh, I'm a posture coach," amongst other things, and I immediately jumped into what some of you may have heard of, the power pose. This was sort of a bit of a cliche thing that a lot of politicians across the world have been doing over the last few years. And I made a bit of a joke of it, and Saskia put me right and said, "Actually, that's not power pose at all. This is how you want to do it if you want to do it." So we got talking, and this sense of our posture, how we hold ourselves, how we're moving, felt to me really, really crucial to our mojo. So when did you work out that this was what you needed to do? This was your calling, from the sounds of it.
I guess there's been a few moments where it's sort of aligned. But there was one moment particularly in time, where it became very clear that what I was doing previously was not enough. So I taught retreats, I was a yoga teacher, I taught meditation, and it was wonderful. But I felt like there was something more, and I didn't know what that more was. So just to rewind a little bit, I've really injured my body quite a lot. So I lost a lot of mojo when I was very injured, and I was in a lot of pain. And when you're living in pain and you're accepting that, it's quite difficult for your mojo to be high all the time when you're dealing and managing. One of my biggest injuries is I grew up breaking horses in. And when you're putting a horse's bit in its mouth the first few times, I don't know why, if they all agreed on this or what, but they tend to lift one foot, put it on your foot, and shift all their weight, so 500 kilos, crushing your toes.
Oh my
God. so all my toes were crushed whilst I was growing up. And so I went on this quest, trying to find my way out of pain. And funnily enough, during my whole yoga career, I had accepted that my toes were beyond my body. I didn't have control of my toes. I couldn't feel them. I was cut off from my toes. I couldn't travel with my awareness down into that place. And so there was this moment that still fuels what I'm doing now, where I tried this revolutionary practice that I have studied very in depth and include in all my work. It's a big part of my work, called the bowspring. And I will never forget the moment that I had hope to have a relationship with my toes once again, because bowspring shifts connective tissue, fascia, rather than being focused on muscles and bones. And so what it's doing is it's sensitizing and awakening a part of our body that we've not been paying much attention to. So fascia has only just come out. It's the new buzzword in anatomy and in sports science. It's only just come out to our consciousness within the last 10 years. And through this practice, I remember that moment of being blown away that actually, these toes that I had literally said, right, that's it. I don't have toes for the rest of my life. So I had very bad balance. You know, I struggled a lot with my feet. I struggled a lot with my hips because feet alignment affects hip alignment affects spinal alignment. So it's all connected, right? And fascia is what gives us this opportunity to feel whole. So all of a sudden, here I was with this practice, and after 2 hours, I remember all these sparks going off in my mind going, what are you telling me, that I can have a relationship with these toes again? That is insane. Wow. And so that's really what sent me on this crazy quest after I tried that first Bowspring session with its creators in Palma. And I knew at that moment that at some point I wanted to go to Denver, Colorado, where the practice was based, and I wanted to dive in deep and understand more and more about this whole alignment thing, which in yoga previously I was quite nervous about. You know, if somebody would come to me in a class and they'd say that they had a knee injury or they had something going on, the best advice I could give them was, well, if it hurts, don't do it. Whereas with the understanding I've got of alignment now and looking at bodies in with this, so what we're looking for is uniform tone. So 3-dimensional, even toning of all the connective tissue. And connective tissue is what holds everything together. So it's holding all the muscles, the bones, the ligaments. And so when you've got that tone, there is harmony of all pieces working as one. But when you don't have the tone, there isn't. And so having this tool and being able to easily spot how a body is out of alignment has then sent me on this crazy quest of helping other people. I've traveled all over the world, and one of the things that really surprised me about people is, or blows me away, is our ability as humans to accept and normalize pain. And so a lot of us are living in pain and we don't even know we're living in pain. And so through this movement and able to scan bodies and their shapes and where things are out of alignment, how could I not share this incredible hope to be able to move ourselves out of pain? So that's the adventure.
Wow, it sounds like obviously an amazing discovery, an important discovery. And is it that you almost, to be so evangelical about it, you had to go through, you had to be a patient, it's probably the wrong word, but you had to be transformed by the approach so you could therefore go and transform other people? Is that fair to say?
It's the first word. It's the first time I've heard the word evangelical. Like, wow, really? Am I?
Well, I think anyone who has that clear, deep, burning passion for something, and they want to spread the word, they want to tell more people about it. I mean, I don't link it to a religious sense of evangelical, but you know what I mean. Yeah,
I think when you've had the experience, compassion and empathy can only be experienced. I think it's very difficult. Wim Hof says this incredible thing. I love it. His mantra is feeling is understanding. So I think when you've felt something, you've understood it to such a deep level. And I've always felt that if I find something that liberates me and makes my experience lighter, it feels like, and this is how it feels internally, that it's illegal in the universal laws, in the laws of the universe. If you found something that makes life better and lighter and you don't share it, that's illegal. So I just have this, I don't even feel like it's a choice. It's a drive. It's something that drives me. And like how could you, I guess if you see a picture on a wall and it's not straight, how could, if you know that when you straighten that picture, then everybody else is happier in that in that environment, how could you not go up to it and just help it, when you see it? So it comes from a place of feeling is understanding and wanting to share that and feeling like I can't keep it. It's not mine to keep.
And you talk about, as you've experienced yourself and you've seen lots of other people living with pain, and it sounds like it's more common, more everyday than we'd probably think. We're probably all sitting with an element of pain that it's hard to recognise, hard to identify. And even if you do, we were talking about this a bit before, if I do identify it, maybe I'll go and see my my medical doctor about it, and maybe they prescribe something, and maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, well, I'll sit with it. I'll literally sit with this pain and sit a different way. So what have you seen? What has been your experience in seeing people living with pain that's obviously going to affect their mojo?
Understanding posture and understanding fascia and how this bodysuit literally holds all our pieces together, and the shape of that bodysuit. Think of it as your instrument. You know, if all the texts are right, and if our body is our temple, and if we are frequency and vibration, form affects frequency and vibration. So looking at the global posture and how it's evolving as we, as a society, take on more comforts like shoes and chairs and mobile phones and sitting down and being static and passive, our health is actually massively degraded. So the more comfortable we get, the more unhealthy we're getting, because our bodies are meant to have a relationship with nature. They're meant to move. They're meant to respond. And so looking at, from my perspective, I've traveled around the world teaching this modality and this system, and what we've seen is that there is a global epidemic of terrible posture, and that most people are normalizing pain from sitting too many hours or from wearing shoes that don't allow their feet to function properly. Yeah, so most people accept this bad posture, right? So we work in an office, our heads are forward, our pelvic floors are tucked, our legs are crossed, we're closing off all our organs. I mean, we're literally, by sitting in front of our laptops, we are shutting down our bodies. So our brains are being hyperstimulated, and our bodies are being, in my opinion, left behind, like literally.
God, just you describing it sounds painful, and we're sitting there 8-9 hours a day, a lot of people in that sort of environment, and gosh,
and stressed. So you add on stress to the bad posture, and these tissues, these poor, this highly intelligent fascia and connective tissue is massively intelligent. It's a conduit where all your your meridians are within the fascia, so it's like the electricity that holds everything together. And so this smart membrane matrix, cellular matrix that holds us together, it's a bit like Play-Doh and plasticine. So the longer it spends in the same position, the more it's going to think that, the bodysuit kind of molds to that, right? It's like your socks or your leggings, at the level of the knee, they get overstretched, right? The tissues, because that's where there's more movement and more malleability. So when we're sitting, our spines, so what we're calling this global epidemic of poor posture is a C shape. So our spine, in its natural optimal positioning, would be a double S shape. Right. So you've got the thoracic curve at the back of the heart, the back of the rib cage, and that's your primary curve, which was the first curve to be developed in embryo. And then you've got the secondary curves, which are your cervical spine and your lumbar spine, and they go in the opposite direction. Right, and then you've got your sacrum that tilts out and the back of the head that tilts out. And there you are, you're growing as I say
literally
this.
Changing my posture. Saskia speaking.
Yeah, and so just by bringing awareness, you see, posture is a magic word. When I usually say posture to people, everybody stands up and sits tall. I'm like, wow, look at that word.
I'm being judged.
Well, and I think it's just awareness as well, because we're not aware of it. We don't think of it. And actually, it's massively important, and it affects everything we do in life. So these poor people sitting in these postures, slumped forward in a C shape, that means you've lost your natural double S shape. So when your head is forwards, you've got a heavier relationship to gravity. So gravity is actually pulling your head down towards the ground. And when your tailbone is tucked forwards, you are actually closing it. You're holding all your in. You're holding your shit in. Like literally. I mean, if we eat 3 times a day, why don't we poop 3 times a day? Yeah. Because we're holding it in. I mean, literally, it's like,
so we're creating tension in our bowels, essentially.
And we're holding unnecessary processed stuff in us without even realizing, because of the way we're sitting. So it's closing it. So if you think of the rib cage being heavy, depleted, and landing down on the organs, and then the pelvic floor being closed, so that poor organs are being scrunched into a tiny little space, And then, and then we're slumping our heads forward. So the cervical spine. So most people, it's pretty general, actually. The pains are pretty easy. L4, L5 lumbar curve. That's where most people's injuries are being caused because of the way they're sitting, and it's traps, shoulders, neck. And it's all posture related. It's because of how we're living our modern lifestyle. So there's a few things people can do to be in less pain when they're sitting. So one of the things right away would be to uncross your legs, because when we're crossing our legs, it's always the same leg above. And so that's going to be causing an imbalance over time. And then what you can do is you can grab hold manually of your sit bones, of the back of the fleshy part of the butt, and you can separate and lift it. So what that's going to do is that's going to open your pelvic floor. You literally want to feel your sphincter stretch. That's what you want. We want that thing open. We want the shit out. We don't want to keep it in. That's not a good idea. And so what you do then is you shift where you're sitting. So most of us, when we're sitting, we did this at the beginning, and I asked Richard, are you sitting on your sacrum or are you sitting on your sit bones? And you said, well, what so most people don't even know, well, hang on, how am I sitting? I don't know where I'm sitting. We're not taught how to do the most basic thing that we're spending most of our time in. And so if you sit more, so if you're sitting right now, try shifting the weight more so that it's halfway down your thighs. So you feel that your sacrum is able to lift up. So you're not actually even sitting on your sit bones or your bum. Your bum is actually in the air. Yeah. It's lifted. And then the spine right away has got an opportunity to rise and to extend. So then your organs are happier. And
I know. I was just saying. I've just done this again and just changed my position, and I'm sitting on the hamstrings, essentially taking the weight, down. And everything's lifted off the old bum area, and my spine automatically curved. Yeah. In the correct way.
Exactly. Yeah. So the spine, the human body. So back to what you said earlier. How do I feel about transforming other people? I don't transform them. The information and the awareness transforms them. I think everybody has, a perfect body. Bodies are incredible. I mean, they're miracles. The fact that we're here and that we have all the functions and the senses, and that we're able to perform and to feel and to do everything that we do on a daily basis is an absolute miracle. So just reminding the body that it has all the tools in order to hold itself up, that the body does have that, but most people don't know how to do that. So you go to a doctor, and unfortunately, they look at they look at the symptom. They don't actually look at the cause. So the root cause of pain can be, and mostly actually is, postural. So you can easily sort of shift your posture in order to move yourself out of pain, but you need to know the information. You need to have the awareness of how to do that. But as soon as you sit up, your mojo, your kundalini, the energy, the rising energy from the pelvic floor to the crown of the head has an opportunity to circulate. Whereas if you're in your C shape, you are in an invitation for depression. So if you bring your head forwards and you tuck your tailbone, your ribs are getting heavy. That's it. How's your mojo? I mean, it's uncomfortable. So it's like you're in your body and you're like, and things feel a bit heavier. Well, you're literally giving yourself to gravity. Whereas if you think of lifting and expanding your rib cage, so think of your rib cage as a massive sphere. It's the biggest sphere in your body, and it's the one that has the most potential for expansion because of the way there's space between the ribs and the intercostal muscles. You can actually grow your rib cage. You can make it bigger. So you can, so then coming back to this idea of power pose, the way society is at the moment, if you watch the news, you'll very rapidly feel disempowered. It's like, what can I do about this situation? It's just so out of hand, so naturally, society is pretty disempowered right now. And we do hand over our own health to somebody else, don't we? We go and see the doctor. Can you tell me what's wrong, please? Whereas power pose and everything I teach is all about empowering ourselves so that we're the ones who are making the choices as to how we hold ourselves. And how we hold ourselves is going to affect everything. And it's going to affect your mojo. But so coming back to power pose, you're expanding your rib cage, so you're making it big on all sides. You're pushing your thigh bones back and wide, so you're opening your pelvic floor, whether you're sitting or standing. And if you bring your hands to your waist and you push your elbows out to the sides, and with your hands you can squeeze your waist in, push your hips down, so you're really rooting down through your legs. And as you push your hips down, you can reach and extend your rib cage and the crown of your head up to the sky. And so all of a sudden you feel quite powerful there. You know, and there's a lot of research that's been done on how posture will affect somebody's outcome when they go into an interview. Not just their outcome, but also the interviewer. You know, when they walk into the room, if they walk in with a slumped posture, I mean, I'm not going to be very motivated to want to have that person on my team. Whereas if they walk in and they feel powerful and they're empowered and they've got their mojo, you know, I want that person on my team.
And it strikes me that, as you said, this is something we're not taught it. We're not taught posture, but this is actually a quick-ish fix that you can make, and you can adjust yourself, and anybody can do it. I think there's a sense of I don't have to pay someone necessarily for this. Obviously, if you want to go through as we'll talk about, a proper course, you do. It's an investment, but it's available to anybody to immediately feel better, get more mojo, have more confidence. At any point, especially those key times, like in the competitive instance of going for a job interview, for example.
Yeah. So if you were going for a job interview, what you would do, you know, there's a great TED talk about this and how you go into the bathroom for 2 minutes before your interview. You push your arms out into a V shape, so like victory. And so these are biohacks.
Yes.
So basically what we're doing is we're hacking our mojo or our how we're feeling through how we are holding ourselves in our bodies. Really interesting. So a blind person who has never seen this before, they've never seen that when we win and when we celebrate, we automatically throw our arms up into the air. How does a blind person know that? So it's in us. So it's in all of us. So even if you can't see, you still know that if you push your arms forwards and up, it's a hack to your brain that you are celebrating something. You're happy, you're joyful, you're reaching up to the sky. And so all these little, they're tricks to biohack our system, to biohack our mind in order to bring unity into the body, the heart, and the body, the mind, and the soul.
Wow. And there was something I wanted to ask you about. Obviously, we're in a situation right now where we're not often actually physically in the same room as people maybe we're doing business with. Maybe we're interviewing, presenting to. We are in Zoom rooms or Microsoft Team rooms, whatever platform you're using. So what would your advice be to that point of hacks that you can do to really give yourself the best opportunity, be your best version of yourself, I guess you're saying, in your posture when we're in that small frame of a video? What do you think people can do?
One of the greatest hacks and one of our greatest empowering tools is embodiment. So you know, when you're in a Zoom room and your mind is running, that's going to be quite automatic for most of us. Is to bring the awareness of the mind down into the body. So already just taking awareness of, okay, what shape am I holding myself in? But what you really want to look at, and where the answers are, is what's the relationship between the sphere of the heart, the rib cage, the hips, and the head. So you look at these three spheres, and if the head is forwards and the hips are forwards, then you're in this C shape, right? So you haven't got your natural double S shape. So if you want to have your natural double S shape and you want to be in your empowered, optimal, most functional positioning, then what you want to do is you want to fill your rib cage up. So you bring your mind down into your rib cage and you make it bigger. You expand it with your mind. You expand it with your awareness. You expand it with your breath. And you hold it a little bit forwards, and then you push the hips back and the head back. And that's going to give you this natural double S shape. So when anybody's looking on screen, whether they're aware of it and cognitive of it or not, if the person that they're looking at on the screen is slouched, shoulders forwards, head forwards, ribs heavy and down, you're going to know, you're going to pick up, because you're a human being and you understand that posture is not a happy posture. So you're going to know that person is not in their best mojo. Whereas if you fill up your ribs and you extend your spine upwards, then you're going to notice that person's presence on the screen, and you'll be like, oh, who's that? You know, they're occupying their space, literally. So it's a lot about occupying our space and being in our tissues. There's this great saying that the issues are in your tissues, because because fascia, this bodysuit, this connective tissue, has memory. It's highly intelligent, and so when we go through a shock, our fascia, our connective tissue, and our bodysuit, they register that shock, so it stays in the memory of the body. Right. And so by shifting that shape, you are then shifting that memory, and you're literally shifting your embodiment. You're shifting how.
So this could be from past trauma, an accident, anything like that. The body's literally remembering through the fascia as you talk about what has happened. But we can shift this, is what you're saying. Yeah.
So trauma stays stuck in the tissues. So oftentimes, it's not natural for humans to need a team of mechanics around them. If your car was constantly needing to go into the garage, then something's wrong. But we've made it quite normal to constantly need to go to the garage, and we go to the garage a lot. We go to the massage therapy. We're all looking. I mean, if I look at everybody around me, we've all got an osteopath, we've all got a chiropractor, we've all got a massage therapist, we've all got somebody there to help us with their hands. But actually, what starts to become more obvious is that through posture, you can shift the reason that you're going to see these people. So you can actually not need them. So a lot of my clients come with pains, with injuries, and after a few sessions, they don't need to keep seeing whoever it was they were seeing because of that trauma has shifted. So you can shift anything. The body is made to thrive. It's made to shine. You look at animals, you look at nature, and they just do it. They do it effortlessly. They don't have to think about it. It just is. And so for us to allow that just is to be, sometimes we just have to bring awareness into a place where it wasn't. So, if you were to, for example, the dog, actually, she's a great example. So I adopted Sky from CanDog, from the local shelter a year ago, and she had only lived in a cage her whole life. So she was quite traumatized, and she'd never had her own bed. She loves her bed. Sky and her bed have a crazy love affair.
Which she shares with a cat, by the way. Incredibly.
Little bubbles. So when Sky arrived, Sky was very traumatized, and she would shake a lot. Like, she was constantly trembling. So she was demonstrating the trauma, any animal that is in a cage and that has got dogs, constantly barking, and their level of, the state they're in is trauma. And so when she came here, she couldn't relax. So for about, I'd say, the first 2 or 3 weeks, all I did for hours and hours and hours every day was massage her. Massage. And then all of a sudden, she calmed down. But what her shaking is proof of and demonstration of is what happens to all of us, is that whatever we've been through, we take with us. Yeah. And so unless we do something to process that, then we're still carrying it. And something I've been thinking a lot about is, at the beginning of lockdown, I'm very lucky, I'm very blessed, I have a lot of space, I can move around, and I have tools, so I know how to move as well, so I know how to process my emotions through movement. But I was thinking about all these people who are stuck in tiny places and didn't know how to move and don't know how to deal or have tools to deal with trauma. So that was, that was sort of a big motivation at the beginning of lockdown. I was teaching online every day for free, twice a day, because I just wanted to share what I had that helps. Because if we don't move this through our body, we're just going to keep carrying it forwards.
Yeah, back to that drive that you were talking about right at the beginning in terms of what, having gone through the experiences you've been through, gave you that drive. This is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to help people. So you talked about some of the clients that you've worked with, and I know you've worked with people physically on your retreats and online, as we all are now in the new normal. Are you able to talk about some of the clients you've worked with, and just some of the changes, the shifts that you've seen in them?
I absolutely love working one-on-one because that's where I see the most progress when we have commitment. And I have a few clients that I've been working with for years. And the longer we work together, the more we seem to get through. You know, it goes deeper and deeper into the layers of the issues in the tissues. So the more you unpeel, the more you uncover, the deeper you go. And through the body, you know, all my work is about bringing the body, the mind, and the soul into alignment, so that we can just divine play. You know, because if we're not in divine play, then that's just because we've got some issues to work out. So one of my success stories is this lovely lady in New York, in Brooklyn. We've been working together for a year and a half now, and she's 56. She's an artist, and she's one of these typical very skinny people who's just sort of straight line, no chest, no curves at all in her body. And so after working together, from the start, she was sort of blown away and wanted to keep feeling more and more freedom in her body. So it was a beautiful beginning. And recently, one of my favourite feedbacks from her is that for the first time in her life, she is feeling her butt grow. So she never thought, you know, she was one of these people who had no bum. Yeah. And for the first time in her life, she is feeling her posterior chain. But what that does on a mental and emotional level is massive. So when you feel that you've got your own back, literally, your back has got you.
Right. Yes. Obviously, a phrase we use all the time.
Yeah.
I've got your back.
Yeah.
But who's got your back?
Yeah. Have you got your own back? Have you got your own back? But of course, if you're in a C shape, you haven't got your back, right, because all your tissues are just completely overstretched in a C shape. There's no support. You know, some muscles are overworking and overcompensating for the ones that aren't. And so most people don't have their own back, like physically. So of course, how are you going to feel that mentally and emotionally if you don't have it physically? Because we are in this body, you know, so the body does have to be part of the experience. Yona's one of those clients. And then another one was a lady called Pamela in Florida, and she came to me with chronic hip pain. And she didn't know where it came from, but for a lot of people, chronic hip pain comes from driving. So it's the right foot, always the right foot in stress, always lifting from the toes. So then that's tightening the groin, and the groin is then, as the groin is tightened, the piriform is straight. So the whole right side. So just from modifying how she was sitting in her car and driving, we cleared actually quite rapidly. That was quite fast, that one, her chronic hip pain. And then I have another client in Argentina. She's the wife of a doctor, actually, and she had terrible blocked jaw. So her jaw was sort of off to the side, and she would have to go to a chiropractor. I think it was twice a month or once a month she used to have to go, and she'd been going religiously for 7 years. So she was in a lot of pain. She had migraines very regularly. And just through shifting her shape and shifting how she moves and being more aware of her spine, it's affected her jaw alignment, and she now no longer has to depend on seeing somebody monthly on a regular basis to be out of pain, and she doesn't have her migraines anymore.
Wow. So back to your point about having a team of mechanics working on us all the time, we don't actually have to have that, but it's about looking at different points of the body because if you've got a jaw problem or a migraine, you'll be looking at around the head, aren't you? Not necessarily at the spine.
Yeah, exactly. But it is the whole thing. You know, the whole thing has to work in harmony. And sometimes the problem or the issue can be quite far away from the cause. You know, so like I was saying about the right hip. Well, it was coming from the way her right foot was touching the pedal and how she was straining it and stressing it, and how she was lifting it from certain muscles and not others. So just shifting how she was lifting her foot then had an effect all the way in her right hip.
Amazing. And at this point, we've Saskia and I have decided that I'm going to be a bit of a guinea pig, and I'm going to have a little assessment of my posture and how I'm standing, and we're going to see just how this comes across on a podcast. I've never done this before. Let's see. Right. So we're standing up. I'm going to hand over actually the mic and the headphones.
Okay.
You'll hear yourself very loudly now.
Oh, wow.
In there.
Yeah, that's different.
Just,
okay, so Richard's standing in front of me, and I'm just going to ask you to relax your fingers, that's it, and just stand how you would if you weren't thinking and you weren't aware of how you're standing. So what I'm looking at in Richard is his alignment, and I'm looking at the relationship between the three spheres, so the heart, the hips, and the head. And I'm also looking at where his weight lands. So I'm going to ask him if he has a problem with his right hip, because his right foot is turning out.
not one I'm aware of.
Okay, all right. And then did you know, I mean, this is true for most people, so most of us hyperextend our knees. Did you know that you are hyperextending your knees right now?
I didn't know that, no.
Okay, so if you feel into your knees, can you notice that they're locked?
Yeah, I've got that. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's
so
a classically locked, standing up straight kind of
exactly
position.
Yeah, so for most of us, we've been taught to stand up straight, to lock our legs and push our knees backwards.
Yeah.
So what that does is it shifts the weight onto the heels.
Right.
So the weight is on the heels now.
Yeah.
His knees are locked. And what that's doing is it's tucking his tailbone. And I'm not seeing much of a lumbar curve here. So his L4 is actually protruding outwards. So it's coming
the wrong way.
The wrong way, yeah. So the way to shift that for Richard, and there's a few things going on. So let's focus on that. Sorry. So the way to shift that would be if you're standing here, now shift the weight towards the front of your feet. So you bring it off the heels, towards the toes and the balls of the toes.
Yeah.
And then micro bend your knees.
The little bend.
Yeah, think of an arrow being behind your knee and pushing your knee forwards. Yeah, so it just unlocks.
Yeah.
And then keep the weight on the front of your feet and your knees micro bent so they're nice and springy. Yeah. And now push your thigh bones back. Push your sit bones back. That's it.
Yeah.
Good. And so now he's in a monkey. He looks like a monkey and he feels really weird.
Yes, it does feel strange.
So it's meant to feel strange. That's good because it's unhabitual, right?
Yeah.
So we're trying to break a habit. So we're trying to shift.
Many years of a habit.
Exactly. And so now what's happened is his ribs have come forward, which is great. But now, here's the trick, and this is where you're going to feel your whole posterior chain fire up. So push your head back into my hand. So I've got my hand now behind Richard's skull. Even more. Push back into my hand. That's it. And keep the weight towards the front of your feet. Yeah. That's it. Bend your knees. Shift your hips back. Yeah, and push your head back into my hand. Just your head from the center of your head. Push back into my hand even more. And keep the weight on the front of your feet. Now, do you feel how much lighter you are in your body right now?
Yeah, I feel a lot in my abdomen, and in my, as you said, in my glutes firing.
Push back again into your there you go. That's it. There you go. Keep pushing back the head.
Yeah, it's really almost unnatural to keep pushing back.
Yeah. So for most people, because we're spending so much time hunched forwards, our heads have molded, so the connective tissue of the neck has molded into a shape of holding the head forwards. Right. So if you bring your hands behind your head, both hands, squeeze your elbows in towards your nose, that's it. And now squeeze your elbows forwards and down, so that's going to pull your head forwards. And now keep squeezing your elbows in and forwards into my hand, down, that's it. And now push your head back into your hand. So you keep, that's it. Did you see how much your rib cage lifted?
Yeah.
Now push your head back, lift your chin up. There you go. So now what's happened is the back of your neck is engaged.
Yeah.
So all these muscles here that have been stretched long are actually now lifting your head up. So that's one of the postures I teach regularly in all my classes is hands behind the head, squeeze your elbows in. That's it. And you squeeze the elbows forwards and down and simultaneously push the head back and up. Yeah. And what that does is it lengthens your sides. Yeah. That's it. And it engages the back of the neck because most of us have got a head forwards and we're not used to using the muscles at the back of the neck to hold the head back and up. So it's using that push back. That's it. And that engages the whole back of your body if you keep the weight on the front. Yeah. Knees bent, hips back a bit more. There you go. And now belly long. Oh, beautiful. There you go. Yeah, good.
Great.
Yeah.
So I just have to stand like this. No, joking.
Yeah.
I need to practice this.
That's the key.
Yeah.
So practice is key.
Yeah.
You know, if we stay in the habitual, you know, if we always do what we always did, we will always get what we always got. So if we're going to move the same way, we're going to have the same result.
Yeah.
But if we shift the way we move, then we're going to start feeling different parts activating, and those that have been used to compensating and doing all the work can start to relax a bit.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. God, 40 odd years of bad habits to break that. Thank you so much.
The beauty of connective tissue and fascia is that it shifts very rapidly.
Okay.
So, you know, I work with some people who are in their 70s, 80s, and actually those people, they have more patience, they're more connected to their pain, and they feel the change very fast. It doesn't need much in order to shift fast. Whereas 20-year-olds, not that interested, you know, not feeling the pain yet. It's not a problem. I don't know why I should do something about it anyway. But 30, 40, 50-year-olds, that's when we start feeling it in our bodies and we're like, hang on a minute. Need to do something about this. And yeah, the changes are, because fascia, connective tissue, has 10 times more neuroreceptors than muscle. So it is highly conductive and highly in touch with the brain. So the neuro reprogramming happens very rapidly. It responds very rapidly. And obviously, you know, fascia, connective tissue is affected massively by our diets. So if we're eating a lot of inflammatory foods, then the connective tissue is going to be inflamed, and then it's not going to be quite so easy to shift. Yeah. But for people who are interested in their health and interested in inflammation, then it can be really quite rapid. Sometimes even one session.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this comes back to your point about, you know, for you, those signals for your mojo, the sleep, the food, the movement, and those three things.
Yeah. And I guess I would add actually input to that. You know, if I'm watching the news, then obviously I'm going to be stressed. Yeah. That has an effect too. Yeah. Wonderful.
Saskia, amazing conversation. Thank you so much for my posture clinic. I really appreciate that. I must carry on with that because clearly not been doing things exactly right. So there's some work to do there. But just to finish on, I'd love to get from you if there's anything else that you do on a regular basis. Clearly you do live a very aware, holistic lifestyle, but any other tips things that you do that work for you, for your mojo, beyond those three things that you kind of talked about up front?
Laughing, playing. Yeah. I think life can get a little bit heavy and serious, and actually, you know, divine play. It's more about, so, you know, I look at my animals a lot, to be honest with you. My cat and my dog are my teachers, and they're constantly stretching, they're constantly playing, they're constantly, you know, kind of just up for it, you know. And I've realised that when I don't have my mojo, it's usually because I'm like, I'm stuck to my schedule and I've got to do this and I've got to do that, and it's serious and it's hard, and if not, the world might end. You know? Whereas actually,
if I don't send that email,
end of the world. Yes. So I think playfulness is definitely something that I'm inviting more into my life, and taking it all a bit less seriously.
That's a great tip. I think we can all take that on and be more playful. Well, Saskia, thank you so much for inviting me to your lovely home, to the retreat space. There'll be a lot of information about how you can get hold of Saskia in the show notes. If you're interested in working on your posture like I am going to now, it's been pointed out to me, just to feel significantly better with not a huge amount of work, actually. So that sounds like a really smart thing to do. And hopefully a lot of those hacks for, you know, the reality of everyday life right now in the Zoom rooms, thank you for those. And I think hopefully they'll be very useful for you. So Saskia, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Richard. And I hope that everybody that has been listening gets something that helps make their experience a little bit lighter, a little bit more enjoyable, because life isn't meant to be suffering and painful, I don't think.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Thank you. So tell me, how many times did you shift your position listening to that then? As I was editing this, I was constantly aware of my double S curve back and trying to avoid that C shape that Saskia talks about and literally stops us breathing so effectively, and means, as Saskia says, that you have your own back. How empowering is that? I really liked exploring what on paper was a more physical manifestation of mojo, how we're sitting or standing. But as with everything, this is so linked to our mental and emotional state. And so another brilliant Mojo hack, and getting our head, hips and heart into alignment to feel better in so many ways. It really comes down to awareness of where we are and what we're doing. And that consciousness really helps with any new habits, especially when correcting the bad habits we've all grown up with, frankly. Those locked, hyperextended legs of mine, for instance. So it's wonderful to know that we can correct and improve, even if it feels a bit weird to begin with. It definitely takes some work, but it can be so worth it. As Saskia says, if we always do what we always did, we'll always get what we always got. So thanks again to Saskia for joining me on the Mojo Podcast and sharing all that wisdom and experience and really getting my posture into shape for better mojo. Okay, as ever, if that episode resonated with you, please go tell a friend, leave a 5-star rating and get me sitting up even more by leaving a short review on Apple Podcast. It really makes the Mojo Podcast more discoverable to more people. Next time out, we go from body harmony to global harmony. A very timely conversation with a really interesting thinker. And given the subject matter, it's my intent to bring this to you just after the US presidential election, something that might just impact the global mojo. Until then, I hope your mojo continues to flow.